call that radio. You call that radio TV. You call that radio TV.
This is You Call That Radio.
This is You Call That Radio TV. Tonight we have Celia Gaze in the house to tell us how putting a bow tie on a llama changed everything. How putting a bow tie on a llama changed everything. This You Call That Radio TV. Tonight we are streaming live to YouTube. And we're on Facebook as well. We're not on Twitch because Twitch made us decide. Twitch basically said, choose me or them. And we chose them for now. Apologies to our Twitch subscribers. We're going to figure out a way to do something on Twitch or maybe swap them around. But in the meantime, we're just on YouTube or Facebook. And we're also on Periscope, I believe, which is Twitter. And that as well. Thanks to all the patrons. It wouldn't be possible without you. We are trying to get to 200 patrons in order to do an all-day live super stream, live music, all day live from Capture Works. I know that I've seen one in August. We did one in Halloween. We need to get to 200 patrons in order to do that. We're on about 100. We're on 185, but today's the first day of the month, so I won't really know for a couple of days where we're at. But we can do this. So if you do enjoy the shows and you want to show a bit of support, it's just a couple of £1 a month. You go to patreon.com/You Call That Radio. And there's a PayPal link there as well. A wee message for our regular listeners. You know, somebody stole. Well, I didn't know if it was the postman or the neighbour stole my beer, my non-alcoholic beer, my lager-free beer. So we're kind of laughing about how. Oh, is that cut off? I've got a bit blurry. We're kind of laughing about how someone, thinking that they've got a case of beer and it turns out there's no alcohol in it. Well, they arrived. It arrived today. Yaver. Fun. No sponsorship. We don't have sponsors. We don't have funding. This is purely powered by the patrons. But I just want to say, it's good. It is good for a non-alcoholic beer. Today's a good show. We've got an expert in business going to tell us how she transformed her life and her business by putting a bow tie on a llama. And some amazing stories to share with us. Tomorrow, but that's in a few minutes, tomorrow night we have Song Seeds Takeover, which is music broth meets song seeds. We're going to be talking about songwriting, live performances, raising money for Music Broth, which is an amazing charity. That's tomorrow night. Thursday night we have Sarah and Auntie Barry doing a You've All Got Talent show. If you remember their hilarious Eurovision episode, you'll be glad to see that they're finally returning. And then on Friday we have Mima Mero, her EP launch, and she's going to have live performances from the likes of Becky Wallace, Amber Quine, and absolutely buzzing for that. Jen Athen as well. I'll tell you all the information in a wee bit, but I think we should just introduce the brilliant Celia onto the show with a round of applause.
If you wanna keep tabs on the underground scene, then you better tune in to this quarantine stream. Call that video. You call that video. Call that video. You call that video.
Strange mood about time.
You call that radio.
Here to tell the people that we hear you. One God will not allow.
You call that radio.
However you want to see it.
You call that radio.
You call that radio.
However you want to say it, that's kind of part of the fun.
Powered by our patrons.
Brothers and sisters.
We are indeed powered by our patrons. Thanks to everyone who's supporting us this month and supported us all year. We couldn't do it without you. I think it's time to go live to Celia. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, hello, hi.
How's it going? And where are you?
I am in Bolton, near Manchester, Lancashire,
Brilliant
at
stuff.
the moment. In my house, in my home office. So,
Brilliant. So
in the office.
so you don't live on the farm that you work on?
No, used to live on the farm, but needed my work-life balance back, so I moved off the farm, and so I just visit it most days.
So wait, that's quite interesting that you've actually, because right, for me, I've been stuck in the city all year. Because you can't go on holiday. Festival season's been cancelled, so there's not really anywhere for musicians to go apart from the house.
Yeah.
So the idea to me is I would like the idea of going away to a farm, but you've actually done the opposite. You've moved out the farm into the city to sort out your work-life balance.
Well, to be honest, I live in a rural village, so I'm not too far. I'm only like about a mile from the farm, so it's not.
All right,
it's
okay,
not that.
So
it's not kind of
going back.
central Bolton. It's
You've
kind
not
of
left the farm to get the actual the city.
Yeah, I wanted that distance. Whereas I used to live on the farm, I would be in the middle of it all, and you felt like if you stepped outside, people would just be constantly going, "Oh, have you got a minute?" and all this. Whereas now, I feel I've got like the work-life balance, and if I want to go on the farm, I can. But if I want to just stay at home and do some stuff, I can do that as well.
Yeah, so you've actually got to make a decision to go to
Yeah.
the farm if you want to do it. It's not like you're going to be. You know, it's also quite good when I'm recording music or it's just turn the internet off. So if you do need to go online, you need to switch the internet back on rather than just that habit of checking your notifications and stuff like that.
Oh, totally. Yeah, because you can just become it when you love something, it just becomes all consuming, and it's really hard to have that separation between work-life balance, and you can just become obsessed. And you can quite happily work all the time, but not have much of a life outside your work. So that's why I decided to kind of come away and almost build up my life so it wasn't all about the farm.
Well, let's just give everyone a little introduction to you. I've got a wee picture here that we used for the flyer. Who's this guy?
So that is a bow tie wearing llama. That is Ezra. So that's
Ezra.
one of the one of the llamas that we have on the farm. We also have alpacas and donkeys, but we're most known for the bow tie wearing llamas.
Brilliant stuff. So just give us a little bit sort of background. I understand you had quite a sort of stressful job in the NHS and stuff like that. And just give us a little bit of your story, just for people who don't know.
Yeah, okay. So I was in the NHS, and I just had a baby, and they called me while on maternity leave to say, "Would you like to do this project?" And it was quite a big turnaround project at the time. So it was a project to save a certain amount of money in the NHS, so making efficiency savings, cost savings, that sort of thing. And it was the first time I'd had a baby, and I did and think, oh gosh, what am I going to do? But actually, it was a good position to go back, and basically, I chose to go back. Probably, I'll be honest, a little bit earlier than I should have done for having a new baby. I go back, and you're not going to save a lot of money. You know, it's not an instantaneous thing. Usually when an organization's in financial difficulties, there are underpinning structures, systems, processes which all need sorting out. You don't just kind of come in, wave a wand and save a load of money. So I got, over a period of starting, more and more stressed about how big this project was, how challenging it was, and I was getting quite worked up with the fact that I wasn't able to make these savings kind of quite immediately. And I kind of took it upon myself, which really it wasn't. It was a systematic thing involving so many different organizations and people and things. But I kind of saw myself as a bit of a knight in shining armor, bought in to kind of run this project. And I just got more and more worked up about it. And I suppose when you're driving to work and you feel like you're having chest pains, when you're crying, you're taking it all back to your partner, when you are absolutely losing sleep, and when you just feel that everybody's against you, the signs were there that I was having burnout, but I wasn't recognizing it. And there was only one day when I had a particular bad day, and somebody said to me, you need to go and see a doctor. And I was like, not wanting to own up that I was having problems in this role. So I was like, oh, I'll be all right. I'll carry on. And he said, no, you should need to go and see a doctor. So I sort of went along and said how I was feeling, and the doctor sat down, and actually, in all fairness, it was quite a good length of consultation. And they said, you are going to be very ill if you don't stop. And I said, what, stop? What, like a couple of days? And he said, no, you've got to stop for a minimum of 2 weeks. And I was like, I can't stop. I've got all these deadlines. I've got things to do. I've got stuff to sort out. And it was a classic burnout, but I wasn't recognizing it at all. And after that, I decided, okay, I took the doctor's advice. But when you do stop, if you are kind of constantly go and doing work all the time, you do stop and you end up feeling worse. You almost go back down before you kind of start recovering. And at the time, I became absolutely obsessed with what stress was. I couldn't just go off and be stressed. I had to kind of go, what is it about a condition that 1 minute you're a high flyer and on getting on and doing meetings and things. I'd run challenging, bigger projects than what I was brought in to do. And I didn't get stressed then. So what on earth were the conditions that led to me getting stressed and burnout? I just couldn't understand it. And so I wanted to learn everything about this condition that had taken me from that point to this point, and almost in some sense, making it so it doesn't happen again. But the more I read into it, the more I got more and more obsessed with this condition, to the extent that I kind of went on a course to understand stress. I then went on a course to understand organizational stress. And then I decided that actually with some hindsight and some counseling, the 2 weeks didn't stick at 2 weeks. You feel awful after that. You feel embarrassed about going back. You're almost embarrassed as to how people will perceive you after being off. And I decided to resign from the NHS, I'll be honest. That was the catalyst of changing. And as part of the course I was on, there was this it was a piece of coursework, literally it was online kind of course to develop to come up with a model of a building which minimized stress. That was the brief. And I got so into this coursework that I was doing research on what colors you'd put in a building, what's the ambience you'd have in a building, what would be the location of the building. It was a fictitious piece of coursework. And at the end, I put so much into this that in the end, I kind of went, oh my goodness, this place, if I designed it, would be absolutely amazing. And I was like, how could I make this happen? That would be my ultimate dream. And my partner had a rundown, very, very rundown, neglected farm. I mean, to the point where you'd almost look at the farm and go, there's just nothing that you could do with that farm. And I decided the great thing about it, the farm had this amazing location and incredible views from the farm. And I decided to start transforming this farm into a special place which would help people with stress, which would help people kind of people who are in a similar position to me. And I basically set about transforming a farm into a concept, and I devised this concept called a Wellbeing Farm. And this place would be designed on the 5 ways of well-being, of having kind of connecting with like-minded people, being in a nice environment, going on to sort of do some exercise. The exercise was, the farm was very neglected. I had to find an animal that didn't take a lot. They had loads of stables, and I was like, what on earth do I do with these stables? I had plans to do the main buildings, but I had to identify and try and find an animal that had a link with stress, that didn't take a lot of work, being honest, that could survive the winters, because we're in Lancashire and sometimes you can get, I mean, the winters aren't as bad now, but they did used to be bad. And also could live in a stable. And I was like, what animal on earth, what animal could tick all those boxes? And I decided, and doing loads of research and on stress, and I came across the concept of llama trekking as a way of minimizing stress. It sounds a bit bizarre that a llama, walking a llama, would help with your stress. And at the time, everyone was like, you gone totally mad. What the hell? What on earth are you doing? So I decided to go and have a go at llama trekking. I kind of dragged my partner and I and baby down to this llama trekking. And the nearest llama trek at the time, this was like 10 years ago, was in Northampton. So I had to go all the way from like Lancashire down to Northampton, quite a way away. And I go on the llama trekking, and I absolutely loved this, walking with a llama. To that point, I'd never really been near a llama. I'd seen them in a farm and I'd seen them in a zoo, but I'd never physically walked or held a llama. You know, you just kind of didn't do it. And I decided that I was going to invest in these llamas, and these were going to become a part of this building. And then the other bits were like, I'd always loved learning. I absolutely obsessed with going on courses, and so I decided that I wanted to create this place where you'd have a cafe, you could come and walk the llamas, it'd be in this holistic, green, eco-friendly style of format, it would be in the countryside, and you could learn courses and come and experience new things, and all of these things combined would help your well-being. So I decided I was going to make this kind of dream happen. And I go and have a real battle with the planning permission and to try and get the plans agreed. And that took like about a year to get the planning permission. And I just couldn't understand, why on earth would they just not let me transform this neglected farm into something that would benefit the local community, that would create employment opportunities, that would get tourism to the area. I just kind of couldn't understand it, and it just seemed that there was this like massive battle to transform this farm.
What was their main concern about?
They just basically said your model will never happen, it won't be successful, and basically they were quite sort of very anti the plans and the vision that I had.
And would you go as far as saying they're anti-llama?
Anti-llama. Well, they just thought, I think because it was so unique, they just didn't understand the concept. And I suppose because it was so novel what I was doing. I mean, at the time, this is 10 years ago, where stress and well-being was not a subject that people openly talked about. I mean, I'm so great that it's very open now, and people openly talk about stress, depression, mental illness. But 10 years ago, you didn't admit to being stressed. And then one of the main reasons why I didn't want to go to the doctor about this, and I'll be perfectly honest, and it just seemed ridiculous now when I talk about it, but I didn't want on my medical record to say she'd suffered or she'd experienced stress, because for me that would be career limiting. That I was on a career thing, I was I was going to go places, and for me to almost have to be stopped to say, oh yeah, she's got a great career but actually dealing with stress, and to have that on my medical record, and it sounds so stupid why I wouldn't go to the doctor for that, but that was the reality. That was almost how stress was perceived back then. It was perceived as a weakness, as something that you've got to control, that you're considered not very good at your job if you don't have a handle on how to handle, if you haven't got a grip on stress.
Do you think the change has been because obviously it does, I totally agree with you with the fact that in the last 10 years there's been a lot more conversations about it and openness. Do you think it's because people are more educated on the subject, or do you think it's because with the rise of social media, everybody's got an element of stress in some form? Stress seems to be much more common. Just checking your notifications can be stressful.
Yeah, I just think it's become a lot more open. People openly admit to talking about it, whereas previously it was like a bit of a taboo subject. You were like stressed and God, keep away, you might give it to me type thing. Now you've got the likes of Prince Harry, and different celebrities coming out and admitting they've been depressed, they've had kind of mental health issues, they've been sort of overwhelmed, and actually that's brilliant that people like that, and the more people and the more celebrities come out and be open about this, it's the better. And for me, although it was a really stressful time, and to me, the stress and burnout was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it enabled me to step back, completely change my life. And I'm not saying, that everybody has a farm that they can just transform, and it's not about that, but it's about that sometimes you have these incidents in your life that happen for a reason, that happen to make you want to completely change your life. And actually, I could have gone down the route, because the doctor wanted to put me on medication, and I could have gone down the route of going on medication and continuing and doing. And I said, no, I want to figure out this myself. I said, no, I don't want the medication. I want to understand what stress is. I want to understand what got me to this position. And I want to see if I can do something about my lifestyle, what I've been doing at work, what got me through this, and make significant changes. And those changes were a result that actually I ended up kind of doing something completely different in my life.
Is that because, so when you're saying that you left the farm to get a better work-life balance, were you still, obviously you're putting in as much time into the farm as you were on the other project? Is it just because is it just because you're doing something that you believe in ultimately? So it was never about the time, but maybe the blocks that were in your way when you were trying to do something. So yeah, just wanting you to say something maybe about comparing the role that you had to the role you've got now. And also, when you said the changes in your lifestyle, what changes in your lifestyle did you make that you think?
Right, yeah. I mean, I think the difference is it's very different working with an organisation. I mean, I absolutely used to love the NHS. Oh, absolutely loved it with a passion. But it was very, very bureaucratic and very kind of like, if you had an idea, you had to kind of put it down in a paper, because obviously it's public funding. So you've got to be very, very careful with what you're doing, in patient safety and everything else. But you couldn't just have an idea and then kind of go with it. It had to have an idea. You had to write it into a report. That had to then be taken to a meeting. That had to be then considered. They'd then take it away and come back in another month and do another meeting. And it was just like, oh my goodness, to get anything done was just so difficult. And compare it now that I have an idea, I wake up and it's by lunchtime it's implemented. I don't have anyone telling me what to do. I've put everything into the design of this farm and what it actually does, and this whole kind of for me, it's now that I probably work a lot harder than I did in the NHS into some respects, but it's a passion. It's an absolute love for what you do. It's excitement. You wake up every morning and you just can't wait to get to work. The work becomes all consuming because you love it so much. But for me, I almost had to move away in the end, because every time I was on the farm, I just never switched off. I was constantly doing stuff. But it wasn't like I didn't want to do it. I wanted to do it, but it wasn't great for my partner or my son. So after a while, we decided we all wanted to get our life back. And actually, there was a management structure put into the farm which enabled other people to basically do most of the day-to-day running of the farm. It didn't need me. And actually, in fact, I'm better placed to work in a way where I work on the business rather than kind of all consumed in the business every day, where I get involved in the sort of nitty-gritty running of weddings and events and everything else, and I'm not as effective. Whereas here, I could be working on a strategy, I could be working on where the farm's going next, the future of the business. Do you see what I mean? So that's why the separation was needed.
I actually seen a quote today. Is this a quote that you would agree with?
Yeah, totally. I mean, one of the culture morals of one of the values.
Because I was listening to the audio podcast. It says, it's an Alan Watts quote, "This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you're doing. And instead of calling it work, realise it is play."
Yeah,
so
love that.
Then it's actually going to be sort of fun.
Well, that's one of the values of our business, because, and even for the staff, like if you come to work and you're not loving it or you're not having fun, you know, you're in the wrong job. You really are. And that's really like, because from how this, if the staff come to work and they love it, that is going to show in how the staff are and the attitude of the staff towards customers and everything else. Whereas if you're coming out and you're like, oh God, I can't bother going to work, it's really difficult, that's going to show to your customer service and everything like this. So I feel that fun is something that needs to come a lot more into work. And people see it as a bit like, oh God, it's a bit almost like flitty and a bit sort of not serious. But actually, we all spend so much time in work. It takes a massive proportion of your life that if you're not having fun, then, you know, it just can become something that just ends up draining you.
And was there anything else, just the second part of that was just lifestyle change? Obviously, the big, massive change is to stop is doing a job that was stressing you out to doing a passion project, something that you loved. But was there anything like, did you exercise or yoga or meditation, or did anything else like that help?
Well, kind of coming back, because I've only got like probably a third of the way through the story. So what happens is I finally, after this big battle, get the planning permission, and then having got the planning permission, the next big battle is to try and get bank funding. And it was one of these things that to try and get the bank funding, I thought, oh my goodness, I've got the assets of a farm that I've got to borrow against. I've got a good business plan. I mean, it was a massive business plan that I'd done, because in the NHS, if you're doing a plan, it has to be massive, big document full of evidence, full of and which is quite right, it's public funding, but that's all I'd ever known. I was 14 years in the NHS, so I lived and breathed NHS processes. I did not at that time have any entrepreneurial spirit in me. I was very, very kind of almost
what was the role?
I was a director I was like program management, project director. I did various projects in the around the NHS, mergers, changing, reconfiguring health services, things like that. So they were quite big, meaty projects. But so basically I go to a bank and got rejected, and I go to another bank and got rejected, and I got rejected from 5 banks. And it was only when somebody came along and took this big business plan and condensed it from about 30 odd pages to 3, I take it to the next bank, it gets accepted. So kind of the moral of the story there is, don't make your business plans so thick and so difficult to understand that kind of nobody can understand quite what you're going on. And having secured the funding and having secured the financing and planning, I'm ready to go. And I secure a builder and I do all of this. Now, bearing in mind, I had never, ever overseen a building project in my life. I kind of got my house, but the house just needed decorating. There wasn't anything major I needed doing to it. So here I am with 0 building experience and managing a big project. And the next thing, I'm liaising with architects, builders, I'm installing a wind turbine, I'm installing water treatment plants, I'm dealing with plumbers, electricians, I'm trying to source a source of energy to the farm. I mean, it was that much that every single thing had to be sorted out, from this farm. So my experience, every time I dealt with the builders, I kept going, can you just do this? And they'd go, yeah, that's fine. Those can you just do this? They never said, well, that can you just do this is X amount of money, and you've already spent this amount of money. So what happens is at the end of the building project, me thinking, oh, I've done this, I've finished it, great, we're ready to open. The builder comes along and says, now you've got so many £1,000 of extras. And for me, that was a massive blow. I was like, well, oh my God, how am I going to pay for those? And so the money that I'd set aside in the running of the farm to open up as a kind of, you need a certain amount of money to run it, to market it, to promote it, and everything else was used up by the building work. And so for me, I started opening this business almost on a shortage of money before I even started. And then that started a whole load of problems, because I was then in a situation where I was almost desperate to survive. And obviously, being on a farm in the middle of nowhere without that marketing and promotion, I started getting really desperate. And so my vision of this being a kind of holistic kind of retreat place, it wasn't going to start off. There was always in any business going to be a certain amount of time before your business catches on. And because we were building and everything all the time, I never had like an end product to show people until the building was like complete. And so we opened the farm to a big kind of fanfare, and lots of people were there. And then we started to get a few bookings, but very ad hoc. So in sheer desperation, people started going, why don't you do this? And I went, oh yeah, I'll do that. And another person would come along going, oh, I've got a great idea, why don't you do this? And I'm like, oh yeah, go on, yeah, I'll try that. And this whole model we ended up with being a cafe, school visits, parties, a cookery school, butchery courses, school visits, educational courses, corporate events, llama trekking, all these things. In fact, I end up doing 14 things from the farm. And there's no way that you can sort of, deal a corporate event. The next day have a school party. The next day have a children's party. The next thing run a butchery course. The next thing run a cookery course. The next thing run, and all the time I was the person doing most of the stuff. I was the person in the cafe cleaning, cooking, running it, doing absolutely everything. And then I'd run next door and do the accounts and do the marketing. And it just was ridiculous. It just got so overwhelming, and I was in such a mess. And at that point, I was in a stress. Was the NHS stress was absolutely nothing compared to this stress. I was, what on earth have I done? I was running into financial difficulties, and obviously the farm was being loaned against a bank loan for this business. So it got to a stage where the farm's under threat. My partner was getting annoyed because I borrowed against his farm. And it was, I can't tell you how awful at that time was.
So you basically started a farm.
Yeah.
The point of the farm is to eliminate stress, but you've actually got yourself a big fields of stress.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah. And the only way that was to be resolved was that I had a mentor came along who was funded by the local authority, and he basically came along and spent a couple of days with me reviewing what was going on, and he told me to stop everything. And I was like, I can't stop everything. This is like ridiculous. I've got to do something. And he goes, well, work out the things that were really bringing you income and the things that you can control, and some of the things you're going to have to stop. So I had to take some time out, really look at the business, really assess. And at that time, one person had asked, could they get married at the farm? And I was like, oh yeah, you can. And I was like, where am I going to get them married? And at the time, the farm's got different areas, but one of the things we had was this big indoor horse arena, which was where the horses had been. It had previously been a livery yard. And there was this big indoor, like a massive shed. It was just a shed, but it did have a big indoor space. And during the time, this is in 2015, I had put a marquee in the middle of the shed, because the shed was so awful looking that I'd kind of put a marquee in the middle of the shed to hide how bad the building was. And we had actually held some sort of wedding there as an event, and people, no, actually it was a party. It was a party for the young farmers, and they'd absolutely loved the space now at the time. And then because we put the photos up on social media and stuff like that, people started to want to know, could they hire the space for weddings? So at the time, this was December 15, we had a couple of parties, but then somebody wanted to inquire, could they have a wedding there? So I was like, yeah, I'll kind of look to how I can do this. Now, December 15, it got to crunch point, because there I was in a hospitality business with zero income coming in. And I was like, this model is just not working. And I go home to my mum, as you do when you're nearly bankrupt and in a nightmare situation. And at the time, she was clearing out her wardrobes. My dad had left the family home, and she's clearing out the wardrobes, and she comes across this bag of bow ties. And she's like, well, and of all the things to leave, what do I do with these? And I just said, give me the bag of bow ties, and I'll just see if they'll go on my llama. That was the most I put into this decision. And basically, I go back home after Christmas, and I take this bag of bow ties, and I go to the guy who's looking after the llamas to me, and I say, could you try and get one of these bow ties on the llama? And when you've got the bow tie on the llama, can you let me know, and I'll come and take a picture? That was as basic as it gets. So I literally go and take, he comes back and he goes, it was a struggle. He said, but we've managed to get the bow tie on the llama. And I said, brilliant. Let me, go in. And this llama looks so good with this bow tie because they've got naturally long necks. The bow tie was there. And basically I shot it, I took a picture, and I uploaded it to Facebook, and it just went crazy. Everyone wanted to know about the bow tie wearing llamas. The inquiries start flooding in for how people could get married with a bow tie wearing llama. And I'd finally found what I was supposed to do with the farm. It was, unbelievable. And we held weddings, and it went from 2 weddings to 15 to 48 to 60 odd to 70 odd, and then we're now over 100. And it just grew and grew and grew, this business. And it was because I suddenly had a brand. I had something that I was stood out from other wedding venues. It was the bow tie wearing llamas just became the whole brand of what we were about.
It's actually mental that you just mentioned about a bag of bow ties, because
why have you got one?
I've actually got a bag of bow ties.
That's hilarious.
Like, literally. I hadn't even
So clearly we used the clip-on variety. We didn't try and attempt to tie a bow tie when the llama had it. But that's amazing. Where'd you get those from?
This is from a farm, funnily enough, as well. But this is a farm that had no use for bow ties. Shout outs to Colette, who watches the show. I don't know if Colette's here. Sorry, it doesn't really suit my get up today. But yeah, we've got a
very
bag of
smart.
bow ties.
Instant transformation.
So I say sort of, it's a bit cold in here, and I've got shite hair, so that's why there's a hat on today. But yeah, so it's a bag of bow ties, and that's a fart.
That's exactly what happened, and basically it was just that simple act.
So let's go that the actual moment. Yeah. So do you see the bow ties, and is it a eureka moment, or is it less, or is it like a big eureka moment, like
massive
bow ties, llamas, eureka?
Yeah, I think the reaction was a eureka moment. The reaction of the photo to me doing that on the internet, and everybody, the amount of likes and comments and noise that post created. And I didn't promote it. I didn't do Facebook advertising or anything like that. 5 years ago I wasn't that into all of this. It was just oh no, yeah, that's fine. It was just
did the alpacas wear bow ties as well?
Yeah, alpacas do, and we have donkeys which wear flat caps. I had to get some special flat caps.
I don't know if this is from your farm or not, but I seen. I looked it up to see what it looked like in real life, and is that? Yeah.
That's not our farm, but again,
but it gives you an idea, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you can see kind of it. They're very funny and they stand out. They're actually alpacas. The llama is much taller and less fluffier, basically. Yeah. So you've got alpacas there, and the only reason I got alpacas, I've only got now one alpaca, because everybody kept saying to me, what's the difference between a llama and an alpaca? So I literally just got the animal so people could understand the difference.
That's brilliant. And so I'm going to show a little clip of the website just now.
Oh yeah.
So we've got that little video. So we'll come back to it all, but this, let's just have a little look at this just now. So I'll just get the video set up. So yeah, we're the video looks great. I don't know who did that. but they've done a great job of it. So I'll just
Oh, thanks. It's quite hard to do a video.
Just give people a little flavour of, you know, what the farm looks like these days. So have a wee look at this, people.
Brothers and sisters, may the peace that can only come from the one God be upon you. We are here to tell the people that we hear you. One God will not allow us as people of conscience to lose our morale.
Powered by our patrons. So yeah, that's looking amazing now. Colette says, "Is that your Scotland bow tie?" This is Colette who supplied the big bag of bow ties. Shouts to Colette. She says, "Is that your Scotland bow tie or your Celtic?" I don't know. I think it's just I don't think it's a Scotland one or a Celtic one. You can.
I think it's a black one, isn't it?
That's
a classic black bow tie.
It's a classic llama tie. That's what that is.
Yeah, I've got black ones.
We've got Petra's in the house. Hello, Petra. Alan says, "Good evening, folks. Been looking forward to bow ties and llamas." Alan has, because I announced that we're going to be on the show last week, and he was very keen. He also says, "Really interesting to hear the stuff about the NHS. I imagine you'd be under more stress with the pandemic. I went and get tested today. The NHS is an amazing organisation for all its faults."
Incredible. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't an easy thing to leave the NHS. Even I'd loved working in the NHS, and I think but it was just the trouble with the big organisations is you can understand it. It's public sector funding, but it just takes such a lot of work and effort to make any changes. You can't do it quickly, and for someone like me who kind of has so much enthusiasm and energy, when I was on the projects and I could control the projects, they were really good because I could deliver. But when I had to get other organisations involved and different people, I just found it very frustrating. I could never do things quickly, and I feel, I mean, it's quite right.
Do you think it's because it's publicly funded? There's all these checks and places to make sure that the money's spent correctly, and as a result of this, of everyone trying to make sure the money's spent correctly, you're just wasting so much time and money on ideas that never happen.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. And also, there's just too many layers that you have to go through to get a decision. And often the decisions come from the clinicians themselves. They know exactly what needs to happen, but you've actually got to go through so much layers and bureaucracy to actually get the ideas implemented. And that's the thing that I used to find very frustrating.
So how long ago was it that you put the bow tie in the llama, and how long's that been?
5 years ago. So we're now coming up to 5 years since I was in that kind of, December 15. So literally about this time, 5 years ago, I was like nearly bankrupt and in a desperate situation. And so now the full, it's gone full circle. No, I shouldn't say full circle. It's gone and grown and grown and grown.
It's
And
really, yeah, it's not a 180, not a 360, a 180, because a 360 would be right back.
That's it. But I mean, I must admit, with this COVID, terrible, difficult situation. I mean, I've had all the weddings postponed for this year. We've not really traded at all, or not had anything. We've had a couple of small wedding ceremonies only, but we've done nothing really since March. We've won awards for looking at how we've looked after the couples and how we've kept the farm going and how we've maintained things. And I during lockdown, I've created 2 more businesses from the farm. But to be honest, it has been a very, very, very challenging time. Really, really difficult. Like all of hospitality.
Yeah. So yeah, with regards to the postponing the weddings, I've got friends who have been about to get married, and they've just kept delaying it by another 2 months.
Yeah,
and it's like, so it's been like, just I do find that it seemed like it's been on the cards. Like, well, obviously I'm in the events industry, and it was pretty much by about April or May we just kind of sort of, right, we've just got to write this year off kind of thing. But I noticed that the weddings people are still getting married as well, I suppose, but I suppose that it's not the same as getting married, outside of this scenario. So I mean, my advice probably would have been to people is just, not that anyone cares what my advice is, but would be like, why don't, if you need to get married for paperwork, do it quick, and then have your party.
Yeah, I mean,
have your proper party next year or whenever you can.
Yeah, I mean, quite a lot of couples have done that, but there are some couples who kind of like, and in all fairness to us, when this first started, I don't think any of us realised that it would be going on for this long. So when it started, we were saying to couples, look, okay, we'll postpone to the summer. Maybe we'll go to September because you'll be like safer. And these were the couples who were going to get married in sort of March, April. And we said, look, let's just postpone them like another 4 months, 6 months later. And I'm sure you'll be all right then.
Is that not a problem because you've got, sorry to interrupt me, because I would imagine weddings are so usually planned so much in advance.
Yeah.
That you're not struggling to move the spring weddings into the summer, because obviously your summers dates would have been mostly booked as well. We were more moving them into sort of the autumn, and then we would move them and say, right, okay, look, why don't you have a winter wedding? And so these couples, because some of them really did want to get married this year, and where we've faced is some couples now, it's just been awful. They've been moved one couple 4 times to try and get a date for them. And this was not about us offering and saying you couldn't get married. We were more than happy to do a small ceremony with a party afterwards. But you saw from that video that our wedding offer is very informal, big sharing platters down the table, everybody having an amazing party. It's got a really relaxed vibe, music till 1 o'clock, lots of drinking going on, and it's not a kind of socially distanced thing. I mean, couples don't want to be married where they have to walk up the aisle wearing a mask with the dad or whoever. They don't want to be there where you're not allowed to hug, you're not allowed to kiss, you're not allowed to dance together. It's just like a nightmare situation to be in. And you've got, I mean, my heart it's just been so upsetting for these couples, so upsetting for my team, because we've had to deal with some really upset couples, quite understandably, just because of the scenario. And it's the first time that I've ever been in a situation where anything you do is just completely out of your control. Like, for example, we'd planned to have some festive afternoon teas for Christmas. The venue holds 300 people. It's got massive high ceilings. It's got open doors. It's got plenty of ventilation. It's in the middle of the farm, controlled access by an electric gate in the middle of the countryside. And I can't do them because we're in tier 3 and can't do any of it. So frustrating. So Tier 2 would mean that you can do it, because I'm guessing what Tier 2 would mean is that if you've got capacity for 300, you'd maybe be able to get away with 50 or 100 people or something like that.
Well, we're not allowed to do anything. We're not allowed to serve any.
3.
Yeah.
But if you got into Tier 2, is that when it changes? Tier 2?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So Tier 2, would that mean that you would be able to get like 50 or 100 people in or something like that?
Yeah, but not for a wedding. regardless of any tier, you can only have 15 people at a wedding.
They don't
And
want the
even
weddings
then,
because I think they
Yeah.
know that people like to get jolly at weddings.
yeah,
So
I know.
a bit too much fun. You can't have too much
Yeah.
fun in 2020. Seems to be the
I
the moral
know,
of the story.
but even if they could have a sort of like go to a restaurant, have a meal, enjoy the day, and then maybe have a big crazy party next year, you can't even have the kind of meal. You can't even have any of that.
Meals seem too much fun. Too much fun. As
Yeah.
well, to have a meal, you can't have that. So what's the businesses that you've done? You've started from the farm during lockdown.
So when I was during lockdown, I decided that I was going to go back and explore kind of well-being back again to the roots of why I started all of this. So I went back exploring and I created this kind of 100 days to well-being where I kind of looked at my own personal well-being and thought, what would happen if I kind of practiced what I preach, if I drank the water every day, if I did meditation, if I exercised and did all these things, and would that massively change my stress levels? Would it help with all these things? And while I was there walking the dog, I suddenly thought, actually, coming out of lockdown, with the whole situation about business well-being, I'm in a business now where most of my weekends are booked up. Friday, Saturday, maybe Sundays are all booked. Yeah, I've got like Monday to Wednesday, sometimes Thursdays free, and the business isn't doing anything. So I was like, how could I fill those midweek? So I went back and developed corporate events. Massive coming out of this lockdown situation is Wellbeing. Wellbeing has never been at its highest level, and I've got the Wellbeing Farm. So, and I've also got a very sustainable building, which is powered by a wind turbine. We do, we banned single-use plastic before it even came trendy. We've won quite a lot of awards for sustainability. So I was like, if I combine the elements of fun, sustainability and well-being into some sort of corporate offer for businesses who could come to the farm and meet and do corporate events and strategy and have all those things around well-being for their teams and whatever. So I created the Northwest Centre for Business and Team Wellbeing. Bit of a mouthful, but it does what it says on the tin. And so that was created during lockdown. And then that was the first business. And then during lockdown, a load of well-being providers and practitioners, so all different types of people, from kind of people who look at people's addiction to sugar, to meditation, to exercise, to therapies, to massages, all sorts of different things. We all got together and started having this kind of virtual coffee shop. And from the virtual coffee shop, we started building a big business. And we've now created a community interest company where the Wellbeing Farm is like the headquarters of that, called Wellbeing Lancashire. And we're on a mission to raise well-being to the highest level. And we've got all the organisations around Lancashire, from NHS to education to 2 universities to doctors, representatives from the hospital, to the whole lot, all around the table, all talking about well-being, which is for us, it's very
virtual
exciting.
coffee shop, man.
Yeah,
that's a very 2020 phrase, I think.
Would you?
A virtual
well,
coffee shop.
There's so many phrases that have come in 2020. Yeah,
social bubbles.
Yeah,
social bubbles. Not heard that.
Unprecedented.
Unprecedented. That's been
all
a
these
lot.
things.
There's been a lot of that as
Lockdown.
well.
We never used any of these phrases before
We've not,
2020.
We've learned a lot. I think we've learned a lot of new words. So yeah, that's interesting. It's I've just been trying to quit alcohol and cigarettes, and I feel like I've done quite well in that front. But now,
brilliant.
But now I hear that alcohol and cigarettes are nothing compared to the real killer, which is sugar.
I know.
True is that? How true is that? Is that true?
Do you know? Yeah, underpinning everything is like this sugar. And I mean, I'm not a sugar expert at all, but I must admit, I did give up sugar for about 2 months, and I felt so much better. So much better. Now I've now gone back. It's very hard to control it. It's some of this thing, and it's in everything. absolutely everything is laced full of sugar. Even savoury items that you think would never have sugar, they're all got
Even
so much sugar in
cocaine,
it.
even cocaine these days has got sugar in it.
You can't get away from it. Yeah. And so no matter how much you try and give up sugar, it's all in all these hidden things that you don't kind of even realise. So it's incredibly
Well,
difficult to give up.
I'm on this non-alcoholic beer. And
Oh,
it
and
tastes
what's that
really
got
good.
sugar in it?
That's what I'm just checking to see.
Bet it
It
has.
must have. It must have because it's really like it's actually really refreshing. So it doesn't actually say it's in German. So you know
Oh.
what? This is the new
What's
one. Innit?
doing for sugar?
They sneak it. They sneak the sugar in under a
Yeah.
different language these days.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's
There's
got
about 12
sugar.
different names for sugar. So even though it doesn't say sugar, it's in all these different types of kind of hidden names, which none of us would really even realize that we were eating it.
Yeah, it's so with with the farm. Do people stay at the night at the farm if you're getting married there?
Well, yeah. I mean, so when I moved off the farm, like I said to you, I'd moved off the farm. I turned my old house into accommodation, into a wedding house. So Pete, the bride in my former lounge is now kind of a lounge with sort of makeup those Hollywood mirrors with the lights all around it, and then upstairs it's got the bedrooms. I've now been literally bedrooms. So there's like a bridal suite, so lovely 4-poster bed for the couple, and then there's some rooms for the bridesmaids and things like that. So yeah, so that's why, and that was another good thing that moving off. It was always difficult because I didn't have accommodation, and now I do. So that's like a good selling point.
Yeah, absolutely. And now there is you've wrote a book about it all.
Yeah, I wrote a book called well, it's here. Why Put a Bow Tie on a Llama? Of course, I had to have that title. And you know what? The reason I wrote this book was not necessarily a kind of, it's nice to be a book. I wrote it for my mum because she really helped me, and actually I wanted to give her something back, and I just dedicated the book more to my mum than anybody. But the main reason I wanted to write the book was two reasons really. I wanted for people to understand about the stress situation, that there is life after stress. Use something that happens in your life as a catalyst to change it. You don't need to put up with something that's really upsetting you, that's causing your well-being to not be as good as it could be. And I'm a massively passionate about, you only get one life, and make the most of it. And that was one of the reasons. So it's about kind of like people having a crazy idea and everybody going, oh God, that's ridiculous. You don't want to be doing that, and yet that doesn't go away. And the worst thing I could think of is, what if I was lying on my deathbed and I kept thinking, why didn't I do that thing? And for me, that was a real thing. I just wanted to kind of put that into the book around almost like a bit of an inspiration for people. But also the big main thing is, I went through so much hassle, so many problems, so I made so many mistakes because there was not a book or a podcast or a kind of program which said how to diversify your farm, how to transform a farm, how to deal with planning permission, how to install a wind turbine, how to install all these problems.
Transformers.
I learned, yeah.
You could call Transformers. Was that one of the possible
Yeah,
book names?
Totally, yeah, exactly. And so I wanted to almost thought that if there was a roadmap, a kind of guide to what could go wrong, it's not saying that it wouldn't kind of give you everything that could happen, but actually, if you could read that and kind of think, well, actually, that could happen, I've got to be ready for that, and actually, that's a way of addressing that. And that's why I wrote it, because nobody told me all the things that happened in that book. And going through redundancy, ending up in tribunals, having court appearances, nightmare handling, how to do the marketing, how to start from scratch, and how to put this, more importantly, how to put the systems and processes in. And I ended up in 2018 having a month off my business. I went on a yoga retreat in Bali, and I completely left the business for a month with no phone calls, no emails, and I came back to business and since I have never done personally.
And you're
And I
breaking up a
want
little bit.
people to do that.
Sorry, you're breaking up. I think. Oh, you're back. You're back. Sorry, we were just.
Oh,
breaking up.
sorry. Yeah,
Just
sorry.
one second there. Yeah, no, it's great. But one of the things that's quite interesting is that you said, well, obviously legal stuff and that. Who decided the 1 o'clock? Like that's when you've got to stop the music and the drinks. Is that the? Is that
That's
due
the
to
local
neighbours,
authority.
or is that how does that work?
No, to be honest, we were given a 2 o'clock ending if I wanted to. But I'll be honest with you, when you've had people on your farm since about lunchtime and 11, 12 hours, 13 hours later, they're pretty drunk. And to be honest, when they get really, really drunk, you do want them off the farm. You want to go to bed. And there reaches a point where they're just too drunk. They've stopped drinking and they're just, and you just think, oh God, let's just close up now. And, sort of, so there you go.
Yeah.
It's a lot later than other venues. A lot of venues close at 11 o'clock. So actually, I feel ours is quite good at 1.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking. Yeah, no, it's just so you've got a 2 a.m. lights. Just curious what the rules are with farms, because if you've not got neighbours, then how does it work? But that's great. 2 a.m. license seems pretty fair. What I was going to ask as well, you said, so I noticed in your other interview, you said that you were there's lots of grants and stuff available. Just basically wanting to end it with maybe some inspirational chat or advice, words of advice for anyone who's maybe in the process of starting up a new business, or maybe has an idea and they're wanting to take it to the next stage.
Yeah. I mean, you would not believe how much money there is out there for starting new businesses. There is no shortage of support for entrepreneurship and new business development. And actually, every local authority has a sort of, I'm not sure, I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure about Scotland. I'm going to be sort of put a thing there, but I'm talking about more about my experiences, which is kind of English and Lancashire. But I would have thought that I wouldn't have thought they were massively different. There are so many opportunities for funding. There's so many courses. I mean, I've gone and done myself a degree and a master's degree, before I did all this while I was in the NHS. But actually, now I could, if my staff were not trained to degree level, some of them are and some of them aren't, but I could put them for free on a degree level course at no cost to me or them. There's so much happen. There's so much available. There's so much grant funding. You have to dig around for it. You've got to spend hours looking for it. There is central business advice areas where, they're all linked to local authorities. We have something called Boost, but there's lots of other areas. And it's about, if you just sort of Google new business funding or something like that, opportunities will come up. And even now,
do you need to do this before you've registered, or is it open to
I think
people?
You've got
to,
I mean, for me, if I was going to do this again, I should have really started off in a field with a marquee, developed the business, and then thought about turning it into a proper wedding venue and thought about doing it. Or I should have started off as a cafe, got the experience, and then kind of went a bit bigger and bigger. I did everything completely the wrong way. I kind of transformed the farm, then thought, okay, I'll create the business. Totally wrong thing to do. And that's, again, why I wanted to write the book, to tell people what not to do more than anything, So what I'm saying is, just because I had a farm and just because I had this, and people might think, oh, it was easy for her, she had this. But to be honest, you can do it without all of those. To be honest, I would actually advise starting off without a farm at the beginning, because for what you don't want is all the upfront costs, and you need to create the business first, then start building and transforming it and things like this. That I think it's about finding something that you're good at and doing something that aligns with your passion, because you've got to be in business for a long time, hopefully. And if you're just going to get bored after a while, it's just going to show. You've got to fundamentally do something that you really, really believe in.
Brilliant stuff, Celia. Thank you so much for your time. I've put the link in the comments for the
thank you.
there for the book, if anyone wants to check out the book. And also I've put up the website link for the wellbeingfarm.co.uk.
Brilliant.
If anyone wants to check that out as well. Thank you very much for your time today, Celia. I'll be sure to check out your book.
Oh,
And
thank
all the
you.
best. Hopefully things get back to normal and all your lovely weddings and all your bow-tied llamas have a good spring and summer next year.
Oh, I know. And thank you. And I hope that likewise you get your events back and everything else. And your
I
radio
hope
show is
so.
brilliant and
I hope so.
really helping people.
Thank you very much, Celia. I'm not going away. Well, I'm going away just now, but I'm only going to Twitch. So you might have heard that Twitch. Me and Twitch are having a wee argument just now. So I'm going on to Twitch right now to sort it out. Twitch.tv/you call that radio right now for the after party. We're going to be having some chat and some tunes. I'll put the link in the comment. So it's twitch.tv/you call that radio. We've got some exclusive new tunes to share with you from Becky Wallace and Empress and some of the other artists that are playing this week. So we're going on to Twitch right now. And if you've got a Twitch, I don't think you need a Twitch account to do that. Just go over onto the You Call That Radio Twitch page and I'll be with you in a little second. If you can't go to Twitch right now, then just tune in to the show tomorrow night. At 7 o'clock, we have got Song Seeds with Becky Wallace and Rosie Bands, who are doing a fundraiser for Music Broth. And then on Wednesday night, on Thursday night, we have You've All Got Talent, the talent show with Auntie Barry, Neeson and Sarah Thomas hosting the You've All Got Talent show. And then on Friday, it's My Mama Rowe, Good Grief EP launch with Jen Athen, Lorna Reid, Becky Wallace and Ember Quine. What an absolute belter that's going to be. But we're going to play some tunes and get a wee chat on Twitch just now. So I'll hopefully see you guys there. If not, I'll see you tomorrow night and every night this week at 7 o'clock. I think that's a cool back.
How do we educate our children to take their place in the economies of the 21st century? How do we do that, given that we can't anticipate what the economy will look like at the end of next week? Every country on Earth is trying to figure out how do we educate our children so they have a sense of cultural identity and so that we can pass on the cultural genes of our communities while being part of the process of globalization. How do we square that circle?
You call that radio.
Makes coherent sense.
Two different ones. Alright, guys that are on the... Alright, guys. Hello, Face Gallon. Go on to twitch.tv/you call that radio right now. We're on twitch.tv/you call that radio.